It's Manda here, and it's with great delight that today I introduce you to a dear friend and my teacher, Prem. And I met Prem randomly a few years ago. My sister Gina and I were looking for something to do on a Saturday, and we stumbled upon this amazing yoga retreat that I never realised would completely change the trajectory of my life. And now I'm one of his students in his really amazing rising energy meditation teacher training, which is a huge honour. And that's why I thought it was so important to introduce Prem to everyone today, because his work and the work of rising energy meditation is so simple and so important. And we see so much people talking about in yachting the stress and how busy we are, and mental health. And of all the people in the world that have tried to calm Manda J down, it's probably Prem and his beautiful partner Tevi. And it's the difference it has made in my life is just huge. But before I go on too much, Prem, would you just introduce yourself to everyone and tell everyone your story and how you came to be Prem?
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, I'm delighted to be here, and I'm very delighted to have you, Manda, in our teacher training program, which for me, I'm getting up in years now, so that having other people who are really trained in this practice that I've been doing for almost 50 years is kind of important to me. It makes it feel like the vibe that I have connected with and am connected with in myself, and continue to live through other people, and that's a good thing. I'm very active, of course, still with all of this. I have practiced since I first moved to America from Norway, way back when I was 17 years old, and not so many years after that, I was looking for something to kind of delve deeper into myself. I was very aware that I was flavored by my family background. There was some alcoholism there and this and that, and I had a tendency towards sadness and depression sometimes. And one evening, I was sitting in my room in New York, and I said, well, there has to be more to life than this, and I kind of banged my head on the floor in frustration and said, please. Force to come in and help me. Who had been trained in India and who was a very successful businessman in New York. Very interesting combination. He looked like a Buddha, but he was a very successful Asian art person, So I was,
wow,
I was very taken with him, and I started to go to his regular classes, open eyes meditation. And in the beginning, mostly what I felt was my own tension and frustration and pain in a way. But then gradually, as I started to feel that I was receiving some energy from the connection with him, something started to really change in me. And I felt the energy flowing and had some really amazing experiences with what's called kriyas, sort of the body responding to the increased energy flow in your system. And so that was quite remarkable. And when I met him, when he first introduced me to the practice, he gave me a big hug at the end of the instruction. And while he was doing that, I had this sense from within me, a voice came up that says, well, you will be doing this every day for the rest of your life. And of course, this was for me very, very, very strange. I had heard some voices from within before. It wasn't that, but what did this mean? But the thing about it is that I have so far, after all these years, I've been doing it every day, and I probably will do it until I keel over, So it was a very, 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 very life-changing moment to meet him and to start this kind of practice. Now, what I loved about him and what I love about what I'm doing and how I've lived my life since meeting him is that it is not the traditional Indian style practice with a guru sitting up here and deny yourself any involvement in the physical, mental, emotional world. It's not like that at all. It's embrace your life and really rise with the energy of your life, but you have to be able to turn your attention inward so that you are not chasing everything under the sun and losing all your life force. That's why a lot of people are burning out, because they don't really know how to withhold their attachment and their energy from constantly flowing out into the world. When it comes from deep within us, then it unfolds very spontaneously. But this is an art, and I would have never known anything about it, I think, unless I had met somebody who had had that experience through teachers in India and who was recognized in this tradition. So, but also just to fill in the picture, I've also had a very active professional life. I was a professor for 5 years in Tennessee in the U.S., and then I was a consultant. I traveled to Japan a lot, back and forth, and then I moved back to Norway where I grew up, and started a consulting business there. And the whole time I was meditating and teaching meditation also on the side. But I had to make a living. Making money teaching meditation was not really what I was seeking. So I was trained as a consultant, and that's what I did to make money, and it helped me a lot. And now we've moved, my partner and I, Devi, to Mallorca, and we have a retreat center here, and we continue to do regular programs around Europe and America. Also, we go occasionally. So, still very busy, but every day counteracting the busyness with a focus inside.
So interesting. I'd like to go a little bit deeper into a point you just raised before, because I think especially those of us in yachting, and you've met, a few of us now. It's a thing of the modern day. We're all chasing dreams. We're all wanting a lot of material things. We have a lot of pressure on us, and we're constantly looking outside ourselves.
No.
We're constantly looking outside ourselves for answers and for more and more. And we're the biggest problem these days, is burnout. And you raised a good point that you believe maybe that shiny object syndrome is behind that burnout, because we're just letting all this energy out of us, looking for the right doctor, for the right course, for the right physio, for the right teacher, for the right information. We get lost. We go looking for a product to buy on Amazon, and 5 hours later we surface from the internet with 10 new Facebook friends and signing up to 4 different podcasts and websites. So, it's crazy. We really get stuck in these rabbit holes these days. And if you aren't grounded, it's very exhausting. And I think this is a big problem in yachting too, because it's not just us with these things. We're constantly on the move. We've got to constantly look for more for our owners and our guests and our crew. And sometimes we're working 20 hours a day. So for people in those environments, where do you even start, Prem?
Well, when I was at my most active professionally, I had moved from being a professor at the University of Tennessee, and I dropped that and went into the consulting world. And so all of a sudden, I'm in an environment that I really know very little about, and I'm leading a study mission of 20 American executives to Japan to study what the Japanese are doing. This is way back in the 80s and into the 90s. And so I don't think I would have really survived the stress of that if I didn't have my everyday practice. I'm in some new hotel in Tokyo or any place else in Japan. And I have to really be connected with myself and feel that I'm balanced and don't freak out about the overwhelming challenge that is confronting me. So, in a very, very practical way, what we do through some deep inner practice is that we are building the muscle system to hold more energy. That might sound strange, but they're really on a psychic level. There is a psychic muscle system in our chakra system, you know. And if your heart is not trained to open, no matter what is going on in your outer life, well, then it won't open. It will shut. And what happens when you shut your heart and when you shut your mind and shut other chakras? Well, you uh, function much less effectively and lovingly in the environment that you're working in.
And just before we go on, could we just clarify what a chakra is? Because I think sometimes people hear that word and will make a judgment. And as many of you know, I'm all about busting the myth and bridging the gap between science and spirituality, because I don't think there should be a gap. I think the two go hand in hand. And chakras, actually, if you don't look at it in a woo-woo way, there's a lot of science behind it. We've all heard of martial arts and the solar plexus, and being hit in the solar plexus, or gut feelings, or the heart opening. But actually, when we look at the human body in anatomy and physiology, those chakra points are quite real. But so for the people that don't even know what a chakra is, and that may be a little bit more scientifically minded, how can you explain that and just bridge that gap before we go on?
Yeah, I don't know exactly if, there are connections with the chakras and various physical glands in the body and so forth, but I'm not exactly an expert in that. I'm an expert in going in and feeling the chakras. So perfect. All of your listeners, I am sure, know what a chakra is just by your inner experience. If somebody has just left you in a love relationship, where do you feel it? In your heart, right in the middle of your chest, don't you? It's like your body tightens up and is like an icicle there, where there before, when you were in love, there was a lot of flow. So the same thing, if you are confronting something very fearful, your lower chakra below the navel tightens up. Yeah. In the sex chakra, if you have had a lot of experiences in your upbringing that makes it very constricted, and you're not supposed to do this and you're not supposed to do that, and so on and so forth, then that area has a difficulty opening and flowing. And the same with your third eye chakra, which is the whole mind. Are you able to open your mind, or are you stuck in exactly what you've been trained to think, and you think those same thoughts over and over and over again, whether they are good for you or bad for you? So opening these chakras means to be able to bring your core attention with your breath to the chakras, and having the experience, literally, of this part of your body kind of opening up, and you feel energy flowing there. Of course, first, what you're going to feel is your resistance and the tension. So in a way, these chakras, and there are 7 of them that we use. It's between your eyes, the third eye. It's in your throat, and which rules communication, and it's in your heart, and it's below the navel. It's in the sex area. It's at the very base of the spine and at the top of the head, the crown chakra. So, those chakras tend to become closed in various ways through our upbringing and through our stress and tension and so on, that we don't know how to deal with. This is not something we have to be guilty about, but it is something that we, in a way, as adult people, whatever job we have, whatever roles we have in life, it's our responsibility to dissolve the tension and get the energy flowing. That's easier said than done. So
It is.
yeah, simple set of steps and ways of doing it, and some guidance from somebody who has done it, is really very helpful. And it's not that we want to have a guru that sits way up there and we are down here. It's not like that. It's
Yeah.
just you're using somebody else's experience to help you. If you were trying to learn to play the violin, why wouldn't you want the greatest virtuoso in the world to work with you? That would be a plus. I'm not calling
Absolutely.
myself the greatest virtuoso, don't misunderstand. But, there is an experience there and there is some value to that. So,
And on that note, I think there's been, a lot of people in yachting lately have got to the end of one season, and often we feel that we're going to get back and get off the boat and go to the gym and get our lives together and get ashore and everything's going to be perfect. But suddenly now we're getting ready for the next season, or the boat's going into refit, and we don't really get a break. And I mean, because I teach the medicine and I speak very openly about mental health and how I transformed my anxiety into alignment through being introduced to you and your practice, and finding myself, and many people reach out to me. So last week, I had 4 people that were suffering extreme anxiety reach out to me, and basically at their wits' end. And if that happens while you've got guests on board or while you're in the middle of a charter, it can be quite terrifying. So if you felt that anxiety, if your stomach was all really tight below the navel, and you've been feeling that for a while, and you get, anxiety can manifest in chest pain and shortness of breath, or feeling overwhelmed, and super stressed or confused. If you're feeling that right now, what would be something? Could you give us like a 5-minute process? Is there something you could do that takes 5 minutes that could just help you kind of get it together?
yeah. Well, I think the main thing is that you have to start wherever you are. So,
Yep.
start by, if you feel a lot of fear, if you feel a lot of anger, whatever it is you feel, don't try to repress and deny it. And you, Manda, you are good at doing that, not repressing, but to not do that. You
I was going
embrace
to
it.
say I'm quite good at denying it too. Well, I was for
No,
many
I don't
years.
think so. I mean the opposite. I've known you
Yeah.
long enough that I see that you try to tackle things head on. And so, okay, so you are angry. I'm angry today. So what? Well, the whole tantric tradition, which is a little bit different than some of the other traditions, it's not a matter of do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. You embrace everything as your friend. So you have to, in a way, make friends with your anger, and you can do that very, very simply by, if you feel it in the pit of your stomach, take a breath and really, I mean, it's so simple, it's ridiculous, but we do it consciously. And if you sit down, you have to take 5 minutes and at least and sit down and feel your breath go down into that area where you're feeling all the tension, and hold your breath for a second and then exhale slowly, and do that for a while and see if this area doesn't start to kind of open up a little bit and change. But it's all a matter of you being able to feel it and master it, so that every time this thing comes on, gradually you will know, oh yeah, but I have a way to deal with that. If your heart is broken, if somebody's left you or somebody has died, you're feeling so pain, there's so much pain there. Well, you learn that by taking a breath into the heart and holding the heart and asking for it to open, it's a little bit like ice in the system, that by breathing into it and holding the breath a little bit will bring heat into the system, and the heat will melt the ice, if you use that analogy, and
Yep.
the water will flow down and eventually pool at the base of the spine. And then as you work more and more and more deeply, this energy will start to rise in the spine, and your whole system is purified. So gradually, what used to be something that would drive you nuts or seem like huge rocks that you had to climb over, suddenly they become little pebbles. You can handle it. You walk across it, and it's okay. I
Because
mean, I
I think,
still, huh?
oh, sorry, I was just going to say, because I think that's something in modern society we're scared to feel, so often, like, someone starts feeling emotional, and you know what, I'm just going to be really honest. So the other day I had to say goodbye to my dad, and I put him on the plane back to Australia, and I love him more than anyone else in the world. And for 2 days I'd felt the tears welling up at the thought of him leaving. And then he was leaving, and I had to get on a medical call and have my act together. And so I thought, I'm going to go and have a glass of wine in the pub, just because I actually felt like I was in a city, and I was like, I don't have time to deal with these emotions. So while I'm, do the practice, my human brain and the most logical answer right now, and I was like, okay, I need to get on a call, and I'm just going to so I'll go into the pub and I'll charge my phone, and hey, look, I may as well have a glass of wine. And I did it sort of subconsciously until I had 2 sips of the wine, and I felt it numb me, and thought, oh, nice. And then I thought, oh, isn't this interesting? Look what I've done. I've tricked myself into finding a glass of wine to relax me, rather than actually I could have sat on a park bench and done what you've just said. And it makes me think I'm really glad I was so conscious of doing that. And I'm a bit embarrassed saying that to about 53,000 people, but it's ongoing work, and no one's perfect, and I'm young in my training, and soon I'll have the tools to say I can choose a different way. But the gift it gave me was how often we will make a choice to go for a substance or something, a distraction, when it's not actually that scary to feel. And so then I stopped and I put everything away, and I did what you said, and I went into my heart, and I thought I was going to lie on the ground and cry my eyes out and embarrass myself in public. But it was really soothing when I suddenly went, hang on, why don't I just examine this feeling? And the more I went into it, it did. My heart opened, and the sadness kind of dissolved once it was acknowledged like a friend, and I wasn't trying to push it away.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I'm talking about, and that's wonderful. And let me hasten to occasionally myself, but I don't something because I know that's not going to work. Then you will have not only one glass, but you will have 10, 20 glasses, and then you really are, totally wasting your energy, and you're not resolving anything. So it's a very practical kind of thing, and it just really works. And there are various forms of breathing exercises, and the main thing is that your attention turns from looking outward at distractions, including your thoughts. Your thoughts are most of the time just distractions. They don't, and many of them are things that go around and around and around, and you think you are trying to solve something, but you're more or less just digging yourself into a deeper and deeper hole, by trying to analyze it. But instead of doing that, turning the attention from the thoughts into the chakras, suddenly, oh, you have the experience that you just described. And that can be not only in the heart, but in the whole area of your system. And then we are able to really also honestly express, hopefully then you allowed yourself to have a good cry on your dad's shoulder when he was leaving, and he could really see how much you loved him.
Yeah.
If you'd drunk yourself, drunk too much before him leaving, you wouldn't have really even been present then for expressing that.
So true. So true. So, I'd like to also invite everyone to feel safe to do that, because first of all, actually feeling your feeling is a lot safer than drinking a bottle of wine or 10.
Yeah.
But it really, I just really like to express, because I think sometimes we don't feel safe to stop and go within. And you're not, if you're starting to feel anxious, there's less chance of you losing your mind if you go within and honor that feeling, right? Would I be correct in saying that?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Now, another thing you mentioned before, you said the word tantric, and I think when a lot of people in the modern world hear the word tantra and tantric, they think of sex, and that it's all about, what's it called, the Sumakatra or something, the book with all the sexual positions.
Kama
So
Sutras.
what Kama Sutras? I won't ask you about that right now, but what does tantric actually mean, Prem?
Yeah. I mean, there is nothing wrong with all the sexual stuff. There's no reason to not embrace that too. But, the tantric tradition has been misunderstood in the West quite a bit, because in the West we are really extra focused on sex. So very many people are very, very interested in it. But the thing that is tantric is that you basically choose to embrace life, and you are focusing on the energy of life. So you want to increase your energy flow inside and your ability to feel deeper and manage your feelings, as opposed to running away from them. And this is a little different than, for example, the Vedic tradition. It's also from India, but it's more focused on do's and don'ts. You have these rules, and as most of Christianity is structured like that. You have your rules, you have your commandments, and if you go outside of that, you have to talk to the priest and get absolution. I'm not a Catholic or anything, but I think that's what they do, right? So this is very different than that. You embrace life, and you can have everything in life, but the key thing is that you can have that all without being a slave to it. Because the minute you get taken by your desire for something, then that becomes your prison, doesn't it? I mean, if you're totally set on making money, there is not enough money in the whole world to satisfy you, because you'll always want more. And this research has shown that, that's a human tendency to, when you fulfill one thing, you want more of it or something else. There's never enough of what doesn't satisfy. The only thing that really satisfies on a deep level is to get in touch with your own fundamental energy that is inherently sweet and powerful. And it's like that for your whole life. Even when you get old, it's easier to die happy with that awareness than if you are chasing and having to focus on, oh my God, now I'm dying and now I'm losing everything. Well, you're not losing anything if you already let it go beforehand and you're ready to go. So a lot of this kind of practice, and this is not so much of a popular idea, because people don't like the idea of letting go. A lot of people want to hold on to everything, but I'm sorry to have to say, in order to really be free of your lower self, you could call it, you have to let go of these tendencies and things that make life difficult for you. It's that simple.
And I've witnessed that so many times. One of the biggest honors I've had in my life is being with people as they die. And I've literally been with thousands of people in their last hours. And while I've done a lot of trauma nursing, I always go back to the hospital where I started, where it's a blend of trauma and aged care, and because it's a very remote hospital. And something I learned at a very young age is that the people that have trouble dying and that have trouble are that linger, and that they're stuck in the nursing home bed, and they it's nearly like, come on, just die, it's okay, just go now. And they're hanging on and they're hanging on and they won't let go, and they just can't. And they're scared. They're so scared of death and they're losing everything, even though they've got nothing, because, well, they do. I can't judge that at all. But, they're just a corpse in a bed, but they still are hanging on to that. And you can see the moment they choose to let go, everything just, or someone comes from, a family member arrives, or they have this dream, or it's like something comes to them and says it's okay. And or some of the people I've been with, I was with, being the generation of nurse I was with many people from the First and Second World Wars as they died, and they'd often have to, like the Rats of Tobruk or, prisoners of war, they'd tell you one story that they'd never told anyone. And just getting that story out and letting go of that pain, suddenly they'd relax, and then you just cuddle them and they die. And it's, I can't express enough how much that's something I just want to tell the world, is the more you start practicing letting go now, the easier life will get, and the easier that process of passing will be in the future.
That's exactly right. And this is what I mean by building inner muscles, in the chakra system. The chakra system gets used to being open and letting go. And wherever you are in your life, this is very, 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 very valuable to learn. And there's nobody who can teach you that. People can point you in that direction and support you a little bit and guide you in the process. But, it's something we have to do ourselves. I mean, I had exactly that experience with my mom. She was dying quite a few years ago. And when we went to America, my father had died young, and my mom was into some kind of a relationship by mail. She was still a young woman. She was, I think, 39. And so she was thinking of going to America to have this romance and leave me behind. I was 16 and a half. And then I started crying. I said, "Are you going to leave me too? My dad just died. I'll be alone." And she got very guilty about that. And she then arranged it so that I could go. And that's how I ended up in America as an 18-year-old. But then just before she died, there was something that was really bothering her. Really, she was so tight, and she had lung cancer. She couldn't breathe hardly. And it was very, very touching. And she said to me, "Oh, well, what about the fact that I was going to leave you alone in Norway?" And I said, "Well, I have forgiven you. Have you forgiven me for that?" She said. And I said, "I forgave you for that many years ago. And it's totally fine. And I'm very grateful that you ended up taking me, because that led to a lot of good things, changes in my life." So, and when I said that, and I told her what a great mother she'd been and how much I loved her and so on, it was like punching a hole, in a balloon full of water. I mean, she was just crying her heart out, and then she was ready to go. That was the main thing that she was hanging on to. Her worry about, I was her only son. So
isn't that just the perfect example of how we get caught up in life? So your mum fought for all these years, and it could have been part of the reason why she got sick was she held on to this story that you'd let go of so many years before. And had she said to you 20 years before, have you forgiven me, Prem? And you'd said yes.
I would have, of course I would have said. Yeah. So it's very touching, the human story that we make and how we block ourselves from really allowing the love that is available for us to not come in. We're hanging on to these thoughts and judgments and so on that mostly are a fantasy. They're not real. So this is what the practice that we are doing, is all about, is to train this inner system so that we become better and better and better at managing ourselves in a way that serves us and other people around us. It's in a nutshell that we are doing.
Absolutely. And it really does make a difference. I mean, imagine if every yacht crew could just do a meditation in the morning. They do it in schools all over the world now. They're introducing meditation. Yeah. And I was involved in a program introducing meditation to a jail that I was working in in Western Australia a few years ago. Imagine if we could bring this into yachting. And I bet one of the reasons people would say they don't want to do that, and one thing I hear is, and I know I said it to my sister, she is into her yoga and meditation, and I remember at one point I was having probably a nervous breakdown after a really horrible resuscitation. And I was very highly strung in those days, and she said to me, "Are you meditating?" And I yelled down the phone at her, "I don't have time to meditate." And don't ask people like that don't meditate, "Do you meditate?" Because it's like the most annoying question ever. And I'm so embarrassed. But it's so true. And people will often say, "I don't have time." And so what? Can you do something in 5 or 10 minutes a day, or could you do 4 lots of 5 minutes? Is there a fast track to
well, you could start with that, just say to yourself that I'm going to sit down no matter what's happening. I'm going to take 5 minutes at the end of my day and or in the beginning of my day, and I'm just going to sit quietly with my back relatively straight and breathe and just feel into yourself. This is an okay beginning, and nobody doesn't have 5 minutes, So, but of course, the other thing is, I don't recommend trying to push somebody to meditate. You can invite people to meditate, and work with you and do this, but it has to come from within the person. If the person isn't really into it, nothing will happen anyway. So, but that's what we are doing in the teacher training that you're part of, is we're learning to talk with people in a way that is an invitation and that shows what experiences we've had. And then if people choose to join, that's fine. So, you can always you can offer something on this kind of forum, where you maybe once every week or a couple of times a week, you have 10 minutes and you meet with people online and you have a little guided meditation. That's one possibility.
I think that's a really great idea. And actually, if anyone's interested in that, because I'm lucky enough to be working with my teacher, Prem, I'd be honoured to do that as a section of this radio show. If Ria's happy, I'm sure Ria would be open to that too. So if there's some people interested and you're listening right now, contact me or put a yes please, in the comments below on social media, whichever platform you're watching on, and it could be something we could start. Imagine if we all did this together all over the world, what we could do for yachting as a whole, just if everyone just relaxed. So if anyone's interested, get in touch, because that could be a really cool thing for our whole industry. Can I ask one more question before we wrap it up?
Yeah.
What do you think, what does freedom mean to you, Prem?
Freedom means to be free from your conditioning.
Yep.
Not that your conditioning disappears. I still have my likes and dislikes, but I don't let my likes and dislikes rule me. They are not a prison. So I notice, here's a person that I don't feel a real resonance with, but he or she's a human being. I go into my heart, I feel into my deepest self, and I can relate to that person with some love, despite the fact that my conditioning tells me that you're not supposed to like this kind of person. But then I actually have some unconditional love for that person. And that is totally possible. And freedom is not what we used to. I'm old enough to having lived through the 60s and all of the hippie movement and so on, and that kind of freedom is not really freedom because it's just freedom to do your own thing. But what is your own thing? Your own thing is chasing after everything that you like at the exclusion of everything else. But chasing after our thing. What is our thing? The real thing that connects all of us as human beings. That is the fact that we are breathing and that we have this energy flow, that we come from the same source, whatever we call that source. So this is something that we can cultivate the ability to do, to tune into that level of experience in ourselves so that we are free to vibrate outward. Doesn't mean that we try to be friends with everybody or anything like that, but we don't have to judge. We don't have to, set up blocks and create conflicts and wars. We can be contributing in the other direction, which is towards unconditional love and flow. So to me, that's freedom. Yeah.
Thank you. So amazing. Okay. So thank you so much for your time on the show. How do people find you? I'll put if it's okay with you, I'll put the Ruda retreat details at the below this feed on our platforms. Yeah. But would you just tell people if they're really interested and they'd actually like to meet you and Debbie in person? And actually, if I could just add, Prem's written a book that's a really good read that I'm reading for the third time now. And also Debbie, who I'll get on the show at some stage, is a yoga teacher, a very cool yoga teacher. And she does an amazing thing called craniosacral therapy, which I think is, one of the reasons that led me into the yoga teacher training, because she could feel the stress in my body and just looked at me and said, Amanda, come on. So they're quite an amazing power couple for two of the most relaxed people I've ever met. And how do people find you if they want to come and do a retreat? Or you do meditations that just go for a couple of hours as well. What do you do?
So we also do on Zoom. We do every Tuesday. I do a open eyes meditation, which is a little bit advanced. But if you're interested in anything like that, we can also set up some basic instruction and have a private meeting. And you can just send me a mail on premig@gmail.com. Email, yeah.
Fantastic.
On Facebook, that's also a way to be in touch with us.
Beautiful. So yeah, we'll put all those links below. And thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I'm so honoured. It's been wonderful.
Need in order to contact me and yeah.
Fantastic. Sorry, I think I got our wires crossed there, but yeah, Thank you. So we'll put the contacts below, and thanks so much for joining us today, Prem. And yeah, please come up and check out Ruda Retreat Centre. It's a beautiful place, and I'd really like to invite all of you, wherever you are in the world, to make the journey to visit Prem and Devi one day, and hopefully I'll be there too.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Manda. It's been very nice. Lots of fun.
Lots of love. All right, I'll see
Lots
you soon. Okay, see you tomorrow night on the Open Eyes meditation. And everyone else, thanks for listening to Yachting International Radio. You've been listening to Inspiration with Manda.